To be so happy. Maybe you can grab dinner together and then...
Hey, hey, hey.
Maybe right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. There's one person replying, and that's the person who was working so hard last evening. So probably Dan. He's here. Where is Dan? He's here, and he's in a working mood. He's still in the flow of his last night work. Yeah. So we see some people arriving to the room. Good morning. Please find your place.
We can see, it's quite similar to the situation we had yesterday. The more time it takes, to arrive to the plenary, the better, I guess, the night was before. And I mean, realizing that this was the last night of the first in-person conference after the pandemic, I totally get, the feeling of making the most out of the night you had. And I hope that you actually had some enjoyable conversations. Maybe you also reflected again upon the day and what happened. And, you could really benefit from each other by exchanging and discussing about the conference, but of course also just meeting people, new people, old friends, maybe anything. But right now, we would like to get started with the closing, actually, of the conference already. I can't believe it's the first day, the last day, the third day. I believe the conference passed by so quick, and I think that's what we're used to with EU Youth conferences, but still, being back in person, time just flew so quick.
And the days are so busy, and there were these wonderful evening activities, so it really passed by so quick. So let's have a look what's ahead of us. After the introductions of the day, we will have a wonderful opportunity to hear the outcomes of the working groups. So what everybody has been working the whole day yesterday, part of the first day, conclusions from harvesters, hard work by the researchers, and there will be a chance for discussions and questions and comments from your side. So definitely not only presentations, but also a chance to discuss and see some details about that. We, of course, want to give quite some time also for the closing. So we will see what happened in the last 3 days. We will have a chance to comment on it. And after the summaries and conclusions, we will kind of go to the final closing speeches and hand over to the Swedish conference.
Yes, and I would say, let's not take any more time for the opening, but at least get you a little bit energized. You know the flow already. You've been here twice in the morning, so please, everybody, stand up and get ready for some Energizer.
Perfect. I will ask for the next slide. So a quiz question. Anybody knows what LDS stands for? I know for most people the first thought it's a misspelling of LSD. No, it's not. Any other guesses what LDS, the abbreviation, stands for? No? Let's see. It's the last day syndrome. no matter how long or how short the event is, it's very hard to gather our energies on the last day. Somehow we know that it's coming to the end, so our energy drops. But we do need to squeeze out of you just the little bits of energy left, because we still have some wonderful work ahead of us. So for that, a little energizer. Can you show me your right hand? Right arm. Left arm. Right leg. Left leg. Great. We're gonna count to 7 with each of these extremities. And then we're gonna count to 6, to 5, to 4. And when we arrive to 1, I promise it works, you will feel energized. If not, you can ask me for your money back. So are you ready? The right hand, yeah? Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1.
We will pay you in coffee. All right. Thank you very much for participating. And now we really want to get started with the content of the last conference day. As Bara has already mentioned, a few people really had a long night, not because they partied a lot, but they actually took a close look at the outcomes of the working groups. And they have prepared a wonderful presentation with you, guiding you through your outcomes, your productive things that you came up with during the working group sessions. So I would like to welcome Dan Moxon and Andra Bata, the two researchers of the cycle, on stage.
Morning, everybody. It's nice to make it here finally. So I want to start a little bit by just placing this cycle into context, or placing this conference into context of the cycle, thinking about where we've been with EUYD9 as a whole and what we're doing. Because we've been exploring some really huge questions. We've been thinking about how can we empower young people to build the sustainable and inclusive Europe they want. And in that, we're placing young people at the forefront as leaders in creating this change, in setting out the vision of Youth Goal 3 and Youth Goal 10. And although it's clear that young people are not necessarily the ones responsible for climate and sustainability issues, it's certainly clear that they're the ones wanting to step up and deal with it. And that's what this whole cycle is about. That's what this whole process, going back to France, back to the consultation methods and through the midterm report. And we're one stage in that process. And so as part of that, we've been thinking about, both in the conference today and before, how can we make our political systems respond to the demands of young people for inclusiveness and climate justice? And that's about holding decision makers to account, something coming through very much in your discussions. We're thinking about how do we enable young people to make sustainable choices through things like access to suitable infrastructure, and how can we ensure that young people from all backgrounds are fully able to participate in our societies, the inclusiveness dimension. But it's also worth reminding ourselves, I think, that this conference takes place within the frame of the youth sector. And the youth sector, of course, is not traditionally responsible for issues such as climate change or environmental policy or the building of transport systems. So we've been wrestling with some really difficult questions. What is the youth sector's role and what are our youth programmes' role in relation to some of these issues we're talking about? Because this is the sector dedicated to enabling young people to realise their goals. And going back a little further, I can remind you we came here at the start with the midterm report, and we looked at the various different best practices that different countries already have in place, things that the youth sector is already doing to try and achieve sustainability and achieve inclusiveness. And we elaborated on these various different success factors, things that we knew that would help the youth sector do this. And through this conference, this was our starting point from building on the midterm report. We've started to go deeper into some of these issues, deeper into thinking about what do we need to be successful in realizing these goals we've set for ourselves, in enabling young people to build the sustainable and inclusive futures they want. Andras and I are going to show you some of the highlights of your discussions. There's way too much that we can do justice to absolutely everything you've said through these last few days, and I want to assure you that there's a whole other process that we go on now to write up everything, to take it forward, and most importantly, to make sure that it informs the presidency conclusions. But I'm going to pick out some of the additional success factors that you identified on the first couple of days. One of the themes you talked about in a lot of issues, in a lot of the workshops, was the idea that success occurs when there are low thresholds to participation. You identified that when we put programs and initiatives in place for young people, and whether that's youth programs, educational programs, or democracy initiatives and ways to enable people to influence political decision-making, it needs to be very easy for people to enter those programs. Very easy for people to get involved in decision-making in our society, in accessing education to our society. And success occurs when it's easy for a young person of any background to take part in those, and that means flexible initiatives, different formats, catering to different needs, making things adaptable, using multiple languages, and making sure the spaces are safe. This is a theme that ran across several different groups. When it came to the issue of governance and participation, you told us that success occurs when participation mechanisms can hold decision makers to account, and this is designed by default. And this could be in processes like this, but also wider governmental and democracy processes. That there's always follow-up mechanisms, methods to report back on the commitments that decision makers have made to increase the pressure on them. And some of you also highlighted the importance of intergenerational dialogue. There was a really important comment, I think, where one of the groups highlighted that it's important we don't think about climate issues just as youth issues. They actually involve all generations, and that if we package it off just as a young person's issue, it risks making it seem less important or deprioritizing it. So for some of that, when we're talking about the way we engage with politicians, the way we engage with decision makers, and the way our democracy functions, there's a need to think about intergenerational dialogue as part of that, and bringing all generations around the table for those conversations to happen. You also told us that success occurs and successful projects occur when people have access to trustworthy information and expertise to support that. And this was in two different areas. We talked about the need for scientific evidence to inform our discussions and our debates about about sustainability and climate change. And of course, the whole fake news agenda becomes a big part of that, making sure that young people are sufficiently informed about what's going on in our society. And this also relates again to how our political decision-making works. Success happens when we can increase the transparency of the European Union and our national governments, to ensure that more young people know how to engage in them, to ensure that more young people know how decisions occur in our society. And of course, another big part of that, and one of the things you talked about, was the importance of communicating our projects, our programs, and our policies in accessible and attractive ways to make sure that political topics and political decision-making is understandable, is engaging, and is relevant to people's lives, but also to increase the visibility and the outreach of any of our youth programs or any of our youth policies to ensure that they can become more inclusive and to support the outreach agenda. You also told us that success occurs when there's investment in sustainable infrastructure. And this is, I think, the area where people found the answers both the hardest and the simplest to explore. You discussed the need for accessible transport, renewable energy, and many other infrastructure issues. On the one hand, it was very hard to think about what's the role that the youth sector might play in relation to that. But on the other hand, it was clear the answers are very simple. There's a need for political and financial investment in these things that young people are asking for. And this kind of brings us back to one of the hurdles that was talked about across a few different groups. The issue of political stagnation, lack of commitment from decision makers, that they weren't taking an action on issues enough, particularly around the environmental agenda, and particularly around the sustainability agenda. And some of that is about the complexities of the European Union, but some of that is also about pushing these issues higher up the agenda so that our politics today represent young people's interests and needs. And of course, bringing things back round to the youth sector, you talked about success occurs when the youth infrastructure and the youth sector is sufficiently resourced to enable young people to push for sustainability and inclusion. One of the things you highlighted again and again was the importance of good youth organisations, good youth workers, good youth programmes. And those are where we believe are the tools that can enable young people, or one of the tools that can enable young people, to help realise the sort of sustainable and inclusive Europe that they're looking for. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Andras, who's going to go a little bit deeper now. Andras.
Thank you very much. Well, now you heard the results of your discussions on what can happen in order to boost the success. What I will dive a bit deeper into is what you know by now, because you have gone through the group debates yourselves, so you know these two words, support mechanisms. What that stands for is how we can boost the success factors. So what Dan was talking about, these very important aspects of what should be happening all around Europe. So how we can boost that in happening. One of the first things that I noticed when I was going through the results of your debates was the need and also the craving for the evidence-based approach and also a research boost across all different areas. It was connected to consistent, transparent, systematic monitoring, evaluation and assessment, this kind of link between policy and reality, and that you actually really want to see that happening, and not only here and then, but really systematically, really across all sectors, so that when you're debating, when you are thinking about future solutions, so that you have something to go by. So that seemed to be quite important to all of the debates. What you also mentioned is the availability of the data on the situation of you as young people. You talked about having indicators in place. You talked about having data which is understandable to you and understandable to also the local policymakers or even other policymakers, so that you can have a debate on an equal level. And for that, of course, you need to have the data available freely as an open source, so that you can have a look at it at any given point. It's also about boosting research practice policy collaboration. So there was a lot of results of your debates actually revolving around the need to actually have the experts from the research available to you, so that when you would like to go actually deeper into some of the issues, so that you have somebody to turn to. And the same goes for the practice and for the policy, so that you see that this really works as a triangle, and so that you see that there is a collaboration which then leads to this evidence-based approach and research boost that you can rely on. It's also connected to what Dan was referring to as in the domain of disinformation and misinformation and alternative facts, as some call it. Another support mechanisms revolve around youth work. Youth work has been quite central to the youth field for, well, forever. And there is quite some push from your debates. It looks like there's quite some push to strengthen youth work even more. And there's quite a few concrete points that you have made. First one is, let's have a sufficient number of youth work professionals. We know how many young people there are in Europe, so let's actually have a conscious decision as to how many youth workers there also should be. Let's have sufficient youth work training opportunities, so that the youth workers who are professionals can actually develop themselves throughout their career. Let's also have sufficient youth worker salaries, so that they can stay in the field, so that they don't have the tendency to actually leave because they cannot sustain themselves. Let's also have some information sharing platforms for partner building, for good practice sharing, know-how sharing, peer learning, and so on. Just so that the youth workers have all the support they need to actually become better and better at what they do. And then also revolving around funds, which are only just the first thing to talk about, there was a lot going on about accessibility of funding. So we know that some funding sources are actually available at the European level, at the national level, even at the local level. But it felt, I mean, in the debates or in the results from the debates, it felt like you want these to be actually more accessible to the youth workers and to the youth field than they are now, through simplifying application processes, allowing different application formats, not only just submitting written applications, but maybe also using videos and alternative formats, and so on. There was also, and that's connected to the previous points on research, but not only, there was also a call for boosting consultancy capacities in youth work. So, for instance, to have these links to professionals outside of the youth work field who are able to actually support youth workers, especially in the domains such as inclusion, but also in the domains such as legal issues or research and all other fields that you can actually think of. What you also talked about, and that also very much connects to this whole conference, is the boost of meaningful youth political participation. So what I read in there was a lot around cultivating culture of participation on different levels. And what I mean by that, or what you mean by that, because this is actually your words, is to build and maintain bridges between young people and policymakers. And that can also have very different forms, but it's apparent that you want this to be happening not only ad hoc or at some points in time, but so that it's really a continuous process where policymakers and young people are in continuous contact with each other and they kind of understand how things are working at both ends of this communication. It's also about publishing and updating resources on meaningful youth political participation. We talked about it even previously in the midterm report. You mentioned this importance of open source resources. There was also there were some outcomes on considering quota for young elected political representatives. There was also a suggestion to connect the European and local levels directly so that the European and local representatives actually have a chance to talk and have a chance to negotiate as to what is going on and how they can support each other. Then you also would like to see more transparency and accountability mechanisms. Again, something that Dan already mentioned. It could be preset evaluation schemes, active communication, political responsibility for what is going on and what is implemented and is not implemented. It's also about utilizing existing political participation mechanisms. You are very much aware that there's actually a lot that we can build on, that we do not need to reinvent the wheel all the time. So you mentioned advisory bodies, you also mentioned participatory budgeting, but you also mentioned that you want to see those in the context in which they belong. So yes, participatory budgeting is a great tool, but it has its limitations and we need to be aware of that and we need to use it in situations where it's appropriate. There was also quite an interesting notion of using or utilizing good practice examples as policy blueprints. What that means is that there's actually quite a few projects or initiatives going on all across Europe. And some of those are actually really good examples of mitigating certain impacts of the climate crisis, for instance. So why not use those as kind of a recipe for new policies, you know, to turn the practice into policy where possible. And also creating physical spaces for the intergenerational dialogue, such as, you know, this platform in here where we are at the youth conference, so there could be actually physical spaces where the intergenerational dialogue can take place continuously at the different levels. You also saw quite some potential in formal education. So it was a lot about civic education, boosting volunteering, inspiring proactivity, exploring how NGOs function and how young people can engage in them. Also presenting a bit more during the formal education years the international opportunities and what young people can get from there. And also all the way to the political education. So what is the electoral system? What are the functions? How young people can engage and in what roles? So you see that the formal education is actually a huge part of young people's lives, and you want to see that used to the fullest also in the domain of participation. And then, of course, there is the infrastructure topic. So what you want to see is the interconnected infrastructure. An example of that is a transit-oriented public transport. So you do not want to see a public transport which is only green, but which is focused on your needs in terms of getting from A to B, and you do not want to be waiting there for the bus for another 2 hours. That's completely understandable. What you want to also see is a support of household green energy transition. You are aware that that will not happen without the funds, and that people, especially young people, often just simply cannot afford that, and you want to see that supported. There's also initiatives that already are existing and that can be further utilized, such as bike sharing. So that is also something that you would like to see boosted. And there were even some really areas going, I would say, beyond the usual box of thinking, and that's, for instance, solar boats, where this would be where the boats are perhaps used a lot as a public transport. This was what you talked about, and I would like to also showcase, I showed this even during the first presentation, and it's actually taken from the toolkit, so you can find it anytime. But I would like to point out where we are, where we're going, and what else is going to happen with these outcomes. So you see that in here we are actually at the reporting phase. You know that the midterm report is already done. This is actually, I mean, the work that you have done in here is another wonderful data collection or voice collection methods that happened, and we will include all of those voices into the conference report, which will then build on the midterm report and push it forward. And then there will also be, at the end of summer, there will be the full consultation phase report, building again on the work of the national working groups on the national levels. What this does is that we are actually pushing for letting your voices be heard by the trio. You can see that there are some aims that the trio claim to have, and these are, among others, also council documents under the trio presidencies. It's also the resolutions, and it's also that the EU member states, based on these documents, are invited to implement the main points of what you have been debating. This is a complex process, and it should be as transparent and as well communicated as possible. Please push for it. We will do our best to push for it also from our end, so that the results do not stay only in the small group, you know, in the small circle, but so that they really are circulated wide and far. And I suppose this brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope you are not asleep at the moment. Looks like not really. So I'll pass on the floor to Clara for opening the debate.
Yes, first of all, I would invite you to maybe have a round of applause, not just for you presenting that, thank you, but also for you creating the outcomes. What we would now like to do is to give you the opportunity to ask clarification questions, to dive deeper into specific things that were mentioned by Dan and Ondra. And you have prepared, maybe we can go back to the question slide and also have it on screen. You have prepared 3 guiding questions for the dialogue, I believe, and maybe you can introduce them and kind of also introduce the aims or some insights you would like to get out of the discussion.
All right, well, if we can have the slides back, that would be wonderful. What we thought would be great would be to build on the results of your debates yesterday and to actually take it further and to help you think on how you will utilize the debates and the results of the debates in your own national context when you actually go back. So the question, I mean, the first question that we'd like to discuss, unless there's some clarifications asked, what we would like to hear is what you are actually taking back with you, and what are the things or ideas or innovative approaches that you would like to push for on the national level, and perhaps even if you already thought how you would like to do that. Because there's actually lots of ideas flying around, so we're wondering, what's your thoughts on bringing some of them back, if you want to?
And just a quick announcement for the tech team. Perfect. Yes, that's the slide we need. Thank you. Here you can also see a visualization of the questions. So we would by that open the floor to you. And yes, we have mics ready, so please raise your hands if you would like to touch upon the questions.
Yeah, hello. Yes, thank you. So something that it was interesting for your presentation is that maybe some of you don't remember, but there is a bond process. There is a process of the recognition of the EU youth workers. And I think right now, actually, and speaking with the people and taking care that the process is already like started and it's a little stop right now, we are not focusing on it too much, generally the countries. So I think like everyone should come back and take care what is the situation in each country about the recognition of the EU youth workers, or the youth workers in general, and what should we be doing on this. Because if we have a lot of proposals, and this conference was great on this, on having some great ideas from other countries, but then we don't have people that will execute them in the local level or the regional level, we will have nothing to work with. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that remark. Just so that we're all on the same page, currently, most of you, I suppose, would know that there is the European Youth Work Agenda and the bond process, which is a process that should lead to the implementation of the European Youth Work Agenda across the member states. That is actually a wonderful initiative to be engaged in and to also take interest in on your national levels, because that is focusing on quite a few of the points that relate to youth work directly and that we have covered, or that you have covered in your discussions. So that really is a wonderful resource already kind of running on the national levels. Thank you.
I saw one more hand risen over there. Could you raise your hand again, please, so that we can give you a mic? No? Okay. More questions from the plenary. I think, having the presentation here right now, first of all, I really want to congratulate you, because in the beginning of the conference, there were doubts of whether, seeing the midterm report, there are actually things that could be added, and seeing now new success factors being identified, and then also deriving quite precise support mechanisms, I would say that's a really important step we took here, and really the ball is right now in your court, maybe also looking at ministerial representatives being here to share and reflect. What do you think about the outcomes of the conference? Is that something you can take with you to really take action? Because it's not just about collecting the information and having a nice report, but the question is now, how do you want to move on from here? What do you want to do with these outcomes within your national settings? So that's a question for you to answer, and maybe also right now. So take a moment to think about that.
One over there.
I actually have two questions, so if you allow me to take two questions. First one is, it's more like a comment. It's where did the ecology and inclusivity went? Like, I feel like we talked a lot about youth dialogue and how to include youth into politics and everything like that, but the point of this conference is about like inclusivity and ecology, and I was very frustrated because I felt like it almost like we never talked about it during the workshops or anything like that. So I don't know, like I was expecting more about it. Like I feel like the only time I heard about ecology was like eating vegetarian and having a visit of the building. I don't know. And second thing is, what was your method to do the report? Like, how did you use the resources from the workshop to do that report? What was your method? Yeah.
I think that's, yeah. a really interesting and good point about where ecology and inclusion fits into this, and something that is also on my mind a bit as well, is where we make that crossover between what the youth sector can do and the importance of those issues. I think it's a really valid point, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of focus on some of those demands. But also I think it's important to reflect that some of that is set out within the youth goal agendas in some ways already, but I think, you know, great points. Methodology for doing this. So Andras and I took all of the information you were putting onto the Miros, onto the whiteboards. Basically we export all of those, try and categorize them into common themes. We looked at success factors across each of the groups, hurdles across each of the groups, and the supporting mechanisms at the end. So rather than working by group, we're working by those topics. And we cluster things together to look for commonalities, things that people have in common, and try to abstract them a bit to see the broader messages. It's probably worth saying in the context of this presentation, we also made a decision to focus on the things, reporting the things that were new. So there were some things that there was a lot of discussion about that will still be catalogued and reported in the conference report and move forward to the presidency conclusions, that sat a bit more strongly with things that you already knew at the start of the conference, already there in the midterm report. So there's a little bit of a twist just in terms of giving this input today to say what's the extra things you've added as opposed to repeating things you perhaps heard and have talked about in detail a lot already. Thank you.
More questions? Yes.
Yes. Hello? Yeah. As a ministry representative, but also as the incoming presidency, I would like to ask, maybe put an additional question to the room, really. And that's a little bit, I mean, you outlined how we are going as a trio to take stock of the results and try to present them in the framework of the council work. And we are preparing some documents for that. You pointed to them, including result of these discussions into the council conclusions that we're working with, but also in the resolution that we're going to produce on the ninth cycle. So I would like, and you talked a lot about the importance of transparency, making sure that the documents we produce and is communicated in a way that it's understandable for those who made the input. So my question to the room really is, how would you like ideally to see a document like this? How would you like us I mean, given the constraints that always are in producing council documents, they are not, you can't just take the report here and put it into a council format. It doesn't work like that. But given the constraints, what would you ideally see in a document like this, and how would you ideally like to see your expressed opinions manifested? So yeah, that's a question to the room, but also of course to the researchers. Thank you.
Anybody that would like to touch upon that question? And we see one hand over there. Please, can you keep your hand up so that the volunteers can see you? Thank you.
Hello, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank both of you for the whole job that you're doing the last few cycles, and not just to this one. I would like to bring on the table also the work of the international non-governmental youth organizations, because they are here, they are contributing into the process, and actually we were focusing more on the national working groups, on the national context, but it's good also to mention that we have the INGYO's perspective, and I would like to ask you how we use their results as well, and how they are merging with the national youth councils as well.
So the IY NGOs are invited to feed into the consultation process that the national working groups are doing at the moment. They can send the same submissions, the same reports if they wish to, and they'll be analysed in exactly the same way. That's the simple answer to that straightforward question, and we really do welcome that.
More questions?
Well, I would actually still encourage the room to take up the question from the ministerial representative of Sweden. I mean, that actually really is giving you now a lot of space to think about how you would see that happen, what it is that you consider a transparency or a transparent outcome of this whole process. To have to make some concrete suggestions. So is there anything on top of your heads how you would like to see that presented so that it really is, you know, in line with what you would like to see or have at the end? I think this is actually a wonderful opportunity given to you. So.
Thank you for the floor. It's Siobhan Gallagher from Rural Youth Europe. Just to follow up on a comment my colleague here and Christiana said regarding the INGYOs, one of the clear examples that could be taken forward to the Swedish side of things is not to put the INGYOs into a corner. They should be integrated. We're talking about inclusivity here. So, you know, we need to be included within the whole project, not just the different countries, and then one corner for a small cohort of people. So there needs to be learning from today and from this week.
Just to briefly clarify, we will have another follow-up session right after the coffee break where we will touch upon feedback regarding the conference. So that is a very valid feedback, and I would definitely invite you and encourage you to post your feedback in that setting as well. Therefore, I do not want to interrupt that discussion at that point. I just want to cycle back to the open questions in the room and also the presentation and focusing on the outcomes of the conference and the content for now. And then we can see about the setting and the framing of the conference in the next part following. So we still have the question about how to report in the room. I guess that's the question that's more directed towards youth delegates, maybe national youth councils representing young people. But then also, again, you can post new questions or share comments, thoughts on the outcomes of the working groups.
Hello, one more time. We are not let's say, official part of EU Youth Dialogue cycles, but as guests, I have feelings that EU Youth Dialogue has some doubts on its effectiveness as instrument for youth participation and delivering of thoughts of young people. This feeling I have based on smart feedback like youth watching. Yes, on one hand, it was kind of like having fun and just throwing some messages, but on the other hand, I have feeling from conversations that even the policy makers session was not clear enough, like why they're coming, what's the aim like for giving feedbacks, what was done during the workshop session, or actually communicating them already at this point when we have open discussion, ideas which are not shaped, not polished so much, but which in this stage already can be delivered and taken into account, not waiting till next EU Youth conference or till when the final report will be done. And also about inclusivity. The role of international youth organizations is quite important, not only in EU context, but also for the neighborhood countries. For us, as for Ukraine, for example, it's one of the tools how we also could, through these umbrellas and through our member organizations, deliver ideas what we have in terms of green development, climate change, and so on. We have many topics to cover as well. And I probably would think how this could be communicated more, that focus should be on inclusivity, not only as part of the topic, but as a part of approach, not only in food, not only in accommodation, but how we organize this process and where is the place of those states which already received candidate membership. So the general idea of EU and EU Youth Dialogue as an instrument within the EU would not be under the doubt of young people, and they would still understand how it works and would believe in it. Otherwise, I don't see how it can function further on. It will be just traditional gathering, but without actual effect. Sorry, just some thoughts which I had from this conference and the general understanding how it was going on. And in my opinion, the place for international youth organizations within the report, it should be already created, not just mentioned like some part of it. They also doing a lot of work, and in many states which have obstacles with youth participation, with political decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll shortly react, and then we have another question comment over there.
Actually, yeah.
Well, there's this one, I believe, a recurring notion, and I see that not only in here, but also in other settings, and that the participation is like cure for everything, and that's not really true. So I believe that there is this, I mean, the process has got its mechanisms, it has got its aims, and the expectations that people have who take part in that process should actually match these aims and the mechanisms. And I'm not saying not to push for more, sure, but also to be aware of what the process is actually about and what the outcomes will be like. So at this point, we are in here at the Prague EU Youth Conference. This is just one spot in time, and this is also just one part of a much wider mechanism. So when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to including outcomes of various groups that work on it, not only the international youth non-government organization, but also to the national working groups and all other partners that are all around Europe, I think it would be also fair to say that they have been doing quite some chunks of work, and that these are also kind of feeding into what we do here. And what we do here then also feeds into the rest of the process. So the expectations perhaps should also match that fact that we are now in here also only just one, let's say, Lego block in the whole, puzzle, wider puzzle of the cycle. It's just a short reaction of mine.
And I think it's also really important to think about, there are two presidencies, well, there have been three presidencies in this trio that have taken the outcomes of this process and set them into the conclusions of their presidency's work. This is a unique process in the world globally. It's a very complex process, and it's a process that's very difficult to communicate. So actually, when you think about what does influence look like at this level, for me, I think it looks like a presidency's leading change across the member states. Now, the EU as a whole struggles to communicate how that works and what that means. So us interfacing that is always going to be a very challenging thing. But it is much, much bigger than the discussion with whoever attended today or yesterday. It's about this wider political agenda, I think.
Thank you very much for, again, showing us the bigger framework of the setting. And that's, again, why I would like to cycle back on the outcomes of the conference, because this is the end of the conference, but this is not the end of the process. It's actually the beginning. We are just entering the implementation phase. The question is now, how shall we continue? What should we do with these outcomes to push further? So I really would like to invite you to now look ahead and comment upon what actions need to be taken from now on. And we have one comment over there, and I think somebody raised their hand here as well. Great.
Good day, everyone. Hello. I'd actually like to support what Andre and Dan just said, and I'm sorry, Natalia, but I disagree with you this time. So, the EU Youth Dialogue, I wish to you and to Ukraine to jump on the EU Youth Dialogue train as soon as possible. It's huge, it's an enormous process, and it takes, I know it takes time, we hear that each and every time, but it's getting better and better from each cycle to each cycle. Right now, we just We just had a representative of Sweden getting up and asking us a direct question. There weren't too many hands in the air, if I might say. So this is the time, this is the opportunity that we are constantly asking for. And when it is given to us, we don't always necessarily use it. So think about it that way. And there was one more thing I wanted to say, but I can't really remember now. So I'll just pass the floor on to someone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking at the time, I would say we have time for maybe 2 more comments. Okay, now you remembered? Okay, 3 more comments, please, brief comments. We have one person over there, thanks to you, and then you can finish up adding your last thought.
All right. Okay, it works. Amazing. So I would like to answer to the question that pops up from Sweden, and I think what's very important when it comes to reports and long English-speaking documents, which is they're very hardly accessible for young people. And they are very hard to interpret, and they do not necessarily give the feeling of a majority of young people that their voices are heard. Because they don't read it, they don't understand it, and they also don't really care often, because they say this is a long document, and yeah, we all know how it works. So I think what might be really important to work on and see how can we communicate our results and the fact that we are working, that it also makes them feel like that their voices are heard, and it's an easily communicable and easily understandable information is going to be available when it comes to outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. I believe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going a bit in the direction to go beyond the council conclusions, for instance, and to also not only stop at the political document itself, but to also have a communication strategy which would then explain to the young people what this particular outcome of the process stands for, what it recommends to the member states, and so on, right?
Maybe we can get you a microphone because of the live stream. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, thank you very much. So yeah, I'm not saying that we should change the whole document because this is how the process works, but it's still a present thing that this is not how young people work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to hand over the floor to the next person.
There was one remembering comment, one additional from the speaker that forgot the second part.
Yes, go ahead.
Is it cool?
Because you have the microphone. Go ahead.
Thank you. Transparency. In terms of transparency, I think it's I don't think we consider the process of the EU Youth Dialogue untransparent, but what we could work on is transparency on national, that is, local, national levels. So some more certain regulations, more observation of the processes on national levels would be much appreciated, right? By all the NGOs on national levels, INGOs that deal in certain countries. So it is necessary to follow each and every member state how they do it, you know, and if there are any consultations needed, to have some help box ready. Whether it is for the ministry or for the NGOs, for the youth sector, for the advocacy, for whatever it is, just, you know, transparency on it from the national level that's going up. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, there was one hand risen before. Yes, over there. Can we get the microphone? And I would suggest this is the last comment, and then we unfortunately have to conclude this discussion round, but the floor is yours.
Okay, so I also wanted to answer Anders' question, because I think these council conclusions are quite a powerful instrument for us. You can we gave a lot of recommendations yesterday and the day before, and really help us if you as ministerial delegates have our back. Like you take over what we recommended before, you put it in the council conclusions, and I think it's even more crucial that not only ministers of youth will read and see these council conclusions, especially because of the topic that we're working on. You should really implement or involve the ministers as well of environment, of, I don't know if there's a minister of inclusivity, but maybe minister of equal opportunities, no idea. But yeah, I think you can really make it powerful if you take over our voice and you are the ones who can spread it to the leaders of all our countries. So.
Thank you. And with this precise call for action, I would like to conclude this discussion round and thank you for taking the floor and using this opportunity to discuss the outcomes. I would maybe to briefly conclude, ask the two of you, could you just give us a brief outline again, what are the next steps now, because this is now really looking forward and taking action. So what are the next steps coming in the process?
Right. So the next immediate step is to actually capitalize on all of your voices and to transform them into the conference report. That will be building on your voices in here and also on the midterm report, which are your voices from the national level, from the national consultations. Then in the next step, we are waiting for the national consultations to actually run their course until the end of summer and build on those and to actually finalize. So in the end, we have like a trio of documents which will be capitalizing on the whole process from the national consultations to here, to Prague, and then to the national consultations again. And then these will be spread far and wide, and these will be also the input for the council conclusions for the Czech presidency, and these will be also an input for the work of our colleagues in Sweden, so that they can take it forward to the implementation phase of this cycle of the dialogue.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, alongside those national conversations, we also have the IYNGO input that we mentioned before. And I think it's really important to understand that what the presidencies then do in their leadership role is about trying to influence the member states and is about trying to encourage the member states to implement and take on board ideas. So the next phase of the cycle moves into the implementation stage, which is about creating actions, creating change. And what we have then is the political scenario where the two presidencies, or the rest of the Czech presidency and the Swedish presidency moving forward, are using their roles as leaders within the current status of the EU to influence what goes on at European level, at national level, and then also below that. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us that outlook. And again, with this, I would like to conclude and also for the people watching the live streams, the reports will be published, they will be available, and we invite you to make use of them and to take a closer look to the outcomes of this conference. It will take some time to compile the report, but it is coming. And in terms, if you need some clarification of the process, then definitely look at the EU Youth Dialogue process. Just Google it, you will find some information on it as well. And yes, we invite you to get into the process. Thank you again. Maybe one last applause to send you off the stage. Thank you.
Before we dive into the coffee break that clearly is coming up right now, we have one important announcement. We want to do a group photo or family photo with every one of you. So this is the moment. You might be dying for coffee or for toilet. Please, please, it's going to be a short moment. We're going to gather with our photographer along the stairs so that there's many chances to be visible. It will be short, it will be sweet, and it's happening actually now. So the invitation would be, let's all go now for the family photo on the stairs.
Please just wait one more second. Please stay seated.
There will be a coffee break, and then we gather again at 11 for the closing ceremony.
I would propose that because we exceeded a little bit the panel, we will start at 5 past, so you have at least a few more minutes to grab a coffee, and we will have some more practical announcements later on. But for now, let's move to the stairs for the photo.
But if you can bring 4 mics, like handheld mics.
Welcome back. I would like to invite you to get seated, and maybe we can play the gong one more time so that people return back to the plenary. Please get seated, find your seats. We will begin in a few seconds. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Before we continue, is Andra in here? You know, we looked for Dan before, and now we are looking for Andra. Is he here? Unfortunately not. Okay, then they're still wrapping up this the researchers part. What we would like to do now, because we talked a lot about the topic groups and the outcomes of the topic groups, but actually, as you remember, we had the creative groups as well, and people joined the creative groups. Thank you again for the facilitators and harvesters hosting the creative groups, maybe we can also give them a special round of applause for their work. We would like to take the opportunity now to actually look at some of the outcomes of the creative work. And for that, we are going to start with a video that was produced in the AV workshop.
My name is Vercha.
My name is Lukáš.
My name is František. We are at the 25th European Youth Conference here in Prague, and now we will shortly introduce you to some of the projects that were very successful since the 2022 conference. Projects such as Decide on Europe, Rozhoduj o Evropě, are now a part of the education system, and every child has a chance to take part in a model of the European institutions. This happened mainly due to a big education reform, which integrated civic and European education into our schooling system.
Rikola, even though it was a small initiative at its beginnings, offering only reused bicycles, it became a great common project for the whole Czech society. This development was successful thanks to governmental campaigns on infrastructure, sustainable transport, and coherent funding by the European Union. Today, free bike travel is available to everyone in all towns in the Czech Republic thanks to Rikola.
Facts About Climate is the most prominent independent scientific institution in Central Europe. Its efforts surpass its early work of simplifying scientific data into easy-to-understand graphs. Nowadays, they also conduct research and analysis of climate, geography, and etc. Despite its Czech background, all its graphs are translated to English, bringing it international recognition. Thanks to projects such as Decide on Europe, the voting rate in the European elections has rapidly increased, and now everyone knows the difference between the European Council and the Council of Europe.
Yeah, thanks to Rikola, combined with car-free days, life is more pleasant in the cities, and finally we were able to build our own clean and green towns. Climate change is common knowledge among Czech society, as well as awareness of carbon footprint of individuals and companies.
Great. So for the young people in the room, 2050, I personally will be 52. You may be, as youth delegates, somewhere around that age as well. So probably our children will hopefully be living in that reality. And I think that's something really we should be working towards to right now. We also had there were more people in the AV workshops. The videos are still, being produced and in the process. And of course, we will be sharing the outcomes of the workshops. But we have also some outcomes of the newspaper and the Lego workshop. And for that, I would like to show you a few pictures. And maybe, Andre, you can join us on stage. And while we look at the pictures, you can just elaborate a little bit how the creative workshops fed into the research process. So here you can see the first picture of the Lego workshop, and I think also part of the newspaper, actually. Let's hear more about that.
Thank you very much. Well, this is the concrete result of work of the newspaper creative group. So you see that what you worked on is actually now seeing the light of day. Plus, this was not the only outcome, actually, because as you know, you have all worked also through the Miro boards, and also the creative groups were working with the Miros and also capturing the ideas behind the newspapers and behind the videos, so that it also feeds to the same process as all the other groups. So all of your ideas are actually captured in there and also stay in here as artifacts in the form of newspaper and video. These will be then also published, so no worries, the newspapers do not stay with us. The newspapers will then be circulated also at the webpage of the conference and further on.
Yes, I would just be clicking through the papers a little bit and through the pictures. And again, I invite you to take a closer look at what the people produce. And I really do look forward also reading the elaborations and, the ideas behind, for example, the beautiful Lego cities we had. And if I understood correctly, this place are still set up, so it is like a small exhibition. You can visit at least the small Lego cities and imagine how a sustainable life in Europe could be in 2050. So once more, I want to thank everybody that participated in the creative workshops, and I hope this maybe also inspired you to establish similar processes at similar policy-making events with young people being involved, but maybe not even young people. I saw some ministerial representatives as well, contributing to the Lego flight to the future. So thank you again. Hopefully we can take a lot of things out of that. Maybe one last round of applause. I would now like to hand over the floor to Bara to give us a little look back of what has happened at the conference so that we are really prepared to dive into the feedbacking. So we just want to refresh your minds and see what has happened.
Right. It seems like a short time, like a long time. We've been together for 3 days. And to refresh our memory, we're going to do a little look back through what has happened starting from Sunday, the 10th of July. I would ask the tech group if you can put the pictures, the slideshow on. And the invitation for the rest of you is, you don't need any technological devices now. You can put aside your phones, you can close your notebooks, and you can just enjoy about 3-4 minutes of a short reflection time. So also you can sit comfortably in your chairs. And let's just together go through what has happened. So many of you have arrived already on Sunday, the 10th July. In the evening, many of us met in the Scout Institute, in the very center of Prague, the Old Town Square. And that's when many of us met for the first time. We had some opening speeches of the director of the European Affairs Department of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports of Martin Fatura. We heard a welcoming speech by Christina, our youth delegate, and we dived into getting to know each other. So it was the game of human bingo. And for those of you who wanted to follow up, we had additional questions, not to fall in love, but questions to connect with each other. And yes, we had some really good refreshments. So we are looking at a few photos from the Scout Institute. It was a beautiful evening, and many of you stayed there until quite late, enjoying the view from the terraces, getting to know each other, and just enjoying the conversation, and having a lovely evening. Some great photos. We want to again thank our photographer for capturing those moments of conversation, connections, and fun.
I just really want to stress, Jasper, I loved the afro action we pulled in that picture. I like that.
The photographer told me yesterday he's a bit shy, so I just saw him that when we were, giving the round of applause, he hid behind the door. But he said, woo! But we really do have some lovely memories from our time together. So that was the evening of Sunday, the 10th July, and then Monday, the big day of the conference. I'm going to be going through the program a bit faster than the photos, but the photos will stay in the background to just illustrate the atmosphere. On Monday, we opened up with everybody. We made the official opening at 9 o'clock. We had here some important guests. We had the Minister of Education, Youth and Sport, Vladimír Baláš. We had a video greeting by the European Commission representative, Themis Christophidou. We heard some words from Christina again. We had welcome from our Ukrainian guests. So that was the opening. And we dived into a panel discussion with different guests representing the different sectors. And we had 2 rounds of panel discussion on the youth goals, the 2 youth goals that were the priority of our conference. So we started with discussing some topics around inclusivity. And then the second round, including your questions, was about green and sustainable Europe. After that, there was a chance to start getting to know each other with a process of morning dialogue. So probably you remember you were asked to move around the tables. It seems like a long time ago, but it was just on Monday. And you were introducing yourself, getting to know each other, asking questions like which 3 words would describe youth work in your country. Also moving a little bit in this conference room that we have. And yes, we see some great moments of getting to know each other, some moments of busy work. After the lunch, that was lovely and vegetarian as usual, we had a very important moment. So Ondra was presenting the midterm report and some of the highlights of the report, success factors, and things that we were actually building up on. So yes, you see the passion with which Ondra is presenting, the enthusiasm. And it was followed. Yes, it was a difficult topic to process, lots of information. And we had actually a very interactive way of diving a bit more into the best practices. You probably remember we had the market of best practices. So just like a snake in the room, we had the tables of the countries that were presenting their own best practice example. And the rest of you were going from table to table, learning more about those initiatives, projects, and things that are happening on a national level. After that, we dived into the working groups in which you spent a day and a half. So maybe you even created bonds in your groups. For setting up a good working atmosphere, we started by getting to know each other, by getting to know the names, the roles, who does what. And after that, we started sharing some feelings about the best practices, and we were really diving into the topic. So we see some facilitators introducing, probably getting to know each other, different nests. We call the places nests, even with a name of a specific bird representing a country. Does anybody remember the mute swan? Kasia, it was yours, mute swan. Just as a curiosity, which country does it represent? Denmark. So unexpected knowledge coming up. We learn about the birds. Some facilitators were tired, but they prepared beautiful visuals.
They've been working hard.
They've been working hard,
before the
really.
conference as well.
The evening of Monday was really beautiful. We were very lucky, actually, with the weather for all our evenings. So we had a chance on the Grand Bohemia boat to sail on Vltava River and experience some beautiful views of Prague. So gala dinner on a boat, a great atmosphere, people enjoying drinks, conversations. There were the magicians going around and presenting different tricks. They were quite fun. Also, some very tasty and delicious food. Definitely a unique atmosphere for conversations and a little bit more of networking, getting to know each other. My wedding ring disappeared, but it appeared again, so no change for me. Yes, people diving into their dinner, enjoying good food. We experienced the sunset and the beautiful views also of Prague in the night on our boat trip. So just jumping on the Tuesday, the 12th of July, which was a very busy working day. So most of you have been working in the working group starting from the morning when we work on the success factors, supporting mechanisms. The second working group was actually meeting people that work on the same sub-theme as you and exchanging some ideas. We had another working group session where you were preparing to meet your policymaker. And after some refreshing and delicious lunch, we actually had a session of meeting the policymaker. using them as a resource person, having a dialogue with them, diving into the discussion about what's possible to do. After that, we had a meeting in the plenary where, with the support of Mentimeter, we shared some questions and we had some, even a little bit heated discussions. And after the busy day of a lot of work, we actually had a wonderful moment of rest. So let's see if we manage to skip to that with the pictures. We met up in a Kotva brutalistic architecture building on the rooftop. So Kotva in English would be anchor, so we met there in the anchor place, and we had the concert of Lake Malawi. Talking to the singer Albert after, he said that you guys were really a wonderful audience, and he didn't expect to create such a good atmosphere. He really enjoyed it, we enjoyed it, and the organizers enjoyed it, so it was a beautiful evening for everybody who joined. The concert was followed up by a DJ set, and we were very happy to see that even after a busy night of socializing and having fun, you appeared in the morning of the last day, Wednesday, in a large number, such a large that we almost didn't fit on a family photo. So we are here on the last day of the conference, day 3, Wednesday, the 13th of July. We heard the presentation of the outcomes of your working groups. So what you have been working so hard for a day and a half, we heard the outcomes presented very well by Dan Moxon and Ondra, and we had a little discussion, questions and answers. Yeah, the secrets are revealed. For those of you who went to sleep, now we can see what happened.
Yes, and I think, and I hope that, you know, looking at the pictures and kind of maybe also seeing some faces, some expressions, some emotions in the pictures being displayed as well, we can see that there have been ups and downs during this conference. But overall, for 2.5 days, I would say we have achieved quite a lot. And I would say we also had a great time, whether it's in terms of fun, but also productive and fruitful discussions. And what we now would like to do is to actually get feedback from you, the participants of the conference, because we believe that it is relevant to evaluate the process and to give you space and time to not just submit your feedback, but actually to also have small discussions around the feedback and to share different perspectives of the conference. Because being in one specific group, meeting specific people, being in a specific setting, your experience of this conference might differ from other people. And I think having a feedback exchange can not just benefit us as organizers, but also you to reflect and get an impression of how other people experience the conference. So we have prepared a methodology for that, and we have 4 great facilitators. Maybe you can stand up and wave a little bit, and maybe we can get the lights in the room a little bit up. So we have Susanna over there. Pavel, can you stand up and wave? Pavel in the left corner. We have Thielen over there, and Michaela back here at the right table. And at this table, you will find different categories. One is highlights, what was good at the conference, what would you like to point out? That's with Susanna. You can also discuss lowlights, what was challenging, dissatisfying in the process, which you would like to see changed in the future. That is with Michaela. We will talk about your expectations in the beginning. You remember the Mentimeter we had and the actual reality you experience in here. And we want you to think about how have maybe your expectations changed, how were some expectations met, and where others may be still open. And you can discuss that with Thielen right over there. The last table will be on recommendations for future conferences. So, of course, we have the Swedish delegation here, but we also have people from Belgium, Spain, and I believe Lithuania? Hungary, I'm sorry. And Hungary with us, and they will take over the next trio presidency. And I would really also invite you, the delegations, to think about how you could maybe contribute to the process, being in the same situation in a year. So, recommendations in the left corner with Pavel. And if there's anything else you would like to stress, we will put a poster up here as well at the stage. And that's like an anonymous, silent feedbacking wall where you can just put in anything else you would like to stress. I just want to point out, first of all, I invite you to be fair, respectful, and constructive in your feedback, and see it like that. Behind everything during this conference, every detail, there was actually a person behind it, contributing, investing energy, and establishing that. Whether it's the chairs and tables being set up, whether it's the lighting, you know, the whole tech setup of the conference, whether it's the workshops, every moment, every detail was planned, somebody thought about that. So please, if you give feedback, just keep in mind that we really want to improve and be better, but keep in mind somebody really tried hard here in the process. So, again, give your feedback so that we can improve and learn. I would say you have 15 minutes now, maybe a few more minutes. We will announce when the round is over, for you to walk around, be at the table, submit your feedback on the papers, and please don't just put them there, but elaborate a little bit, discuss and meet other participants, and you are free to choose whatever your tables and corners you would like to visit.
Maybe just one detail to add. This is the first and interactive step of the evaluation process, and there will still be a written form that you will receive by your email. So also don't feel pressure, you need to put every single thing you want to say. This is the first interactive moment, and you will still have a chance to express your opinions in a standard evaluation form.
Yes, the standard evaluation form will mainly touch upon, you know, organizational aspects of the conference and having more of a quantitative approach. This is now the qualitative consultation of really diving into the process, the experiences at the conference, to make sure everybody knows what's happening. Okay, 50 minutes from now, see you back and enjoy the discussions.
a čím dřív o tom...
5 minutes left. You have 5 minutes left. So please, if you haven't visited a specific flip chart, do that now. You have 5 minutes. thank you so, so much for sharing your thoughts, your ideas with us. Could you please find your seats again? Please finish up your writing and find your seats again. Please find your seats.
Can we ask you to find a seat?
We will leave the posters, the flip charts, up for a little bit longer so that you can still add certain ideas if you feel like you couldn't fully elaborate on them yet, or you didn't have the chance to visit specific flip charts. So you can still do that. Please, will you find your seats? The Austrian and German delegation, please, can you find your seats? As well as Swedish delegation and the European Commission. And the youth delegates back there in the corner, please find your seats. Thank you. So once again, thank you for contributing to the feedback flip charts. We will take them with us and read through them. And again, I want to especially encourage the delegations that will take on the process and the next presidency to visit the flip charts as well, take a picture and maybe read through them. They will be up till we wrap up the part here. So during the next coffee break, which actually will be the closing already, you can visit and read through what the others have contributed. We want to use this moment of feedbacking to have a round of thank you, because as I mentioned before, a lot of people contributed to the process, and no matter how valid the positive and the negative aspects of the process are, at the end, people really invested in the process, and I think we have to give them some appreciation. So let us start with the lovely host of this conference, which is a team of Cubex, as well as the vegan and vegetarian catering we had, and the great tech team that have been, providing us with a lovely setup and stage. So let's give them a round of applause.
The next thing we want to appreciate and highlight, and we already touched upon that before the break, is the great job of the media team. So not only the photographer, but all the media team that helps us to spread the message. We know how crucial, and you highlighted that yourself, is to let also the others who are not here with us, let's spread what we are doing here. Might it be through streaming, through pictures, through social media. So let's give a big round of applause to the whole media team.
Also, I would like to share my biggest appreciation to the volunteers that took the time to be here, to be active, and to support us in the process. And you were there at any point during the conference at the disposal and supporting us with whatever we asked you to do. And you have been helping us so, so much. So thank you for being here and taking the time.
And then there was a special group of people who worked hard, and their mornings started early and their evenings ended late, and they made the working group process smooth. So it was the harvesters and facilitators that made an excellent job, not only in the topical groups, but also in the Lego workshop, the newspaper creative workshop, and the audiovisual workshop. So big round of applause to harvesters and facilitators.
And also one special team, and I will not separate them by institutions, because actually being part of the organizers, I realized how close the team got and how greatly they really collaborated and shaped the conference together. They have been the longest to be in the process of hosting this conference and preparing it. And I believe they are quite tired. They put a lot of energy, a lot of resources into it. And I think you deserve a big, big, big round of applause. So thank you to the National Youth Council, the National Agency of the Czech Republic, as well as the organizing team of the ministry for hosting us and creating this wonderful conference.
And not to forget, can everybody in the conference room raise up one of their hands? Yeah? And take that hand and tap it on one of your shoulders. So we cannot forget what's the core of the conference, and that is great and dedicated work and effort and time of each and every one of you. So we want to thank you for being here with us, working hard and dedicating your energy. Thank you all for being here and for working with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Much appreciated. Yes. As we said, you know, this conference, it's been a process, and it has been a lovely journey being here with you and working on this 9th cycle. We stressed at so many points of the conference that we are really just at the beginning of the work that needs to be done. And because of that, we want to look ahead and already open up the handover, because unfortunately, although the Czech presidency really just started, the conference and the organization of it is coming to an end, and now it is about the Swedish presidency and the Czech presidency, as well, of course, with the French presidency also, together shaping the implementation phase of the cycle. And to look ahead and to have the handover, I would like to invite the 3 presidencies to join us here on stage and take over for the handover of the conference. I think we are still organizing and finding the people. Thank you very much. We have the Deputy Minister joining us and taking over the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, I dislike those inhuman devices called microphones. And I usually rely upon my strong voice. So my question is, do you hear me? I see that no one is dressed formally in this hall, with my shameful exception. So let me make it informal as well, if you don't mind, of course.
A kde je?
Such a relief, such a relief. And now the formal part comes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished guests and
Znám, už jsme to řešili. Čau, čau.
steadily increasing population, uneven development across the globe, deteriorating environment, financial crisis, climate change, energy and food safety, and unfortunately war conflicts have posed threats to people's dream of sustainable and beautiful Europe. It calls on us to reinforce our cooperation, extend our common ground, and establish partner relationships. Well, during your stay in Prague, you have exchanged ideas, analyzed the general situation and existing problems in building sustainable, inclusive societies. You also shared experiences from home and abroad, and proposed many constructive ideas for more sustainable and inclusive Europe. You have proved that sustainable and inclusive Europe is more than a dream. It's becoming reality. The colleague of mine applauded your active participation in this conference as it speaks volumes of your commitment to achieving sustainable and inclusive society. And I have also heard that the spirit of solidarity, about the spirit of solidarity with Ukraine, and that spirit has been clearly expressed by you throughout the conference. Your empathy for your Ukrainian friends, colleagues, shows that the European spirit of solidarity and cooperation is stronger than ever. I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to all of you who have warmly praised the Ukrainian delegation. Now, what shall I say in Iberia? Well, probably I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I really believe that the future of Europe is ours. Thank you very much.
You can join us here. Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me. Let me just speak to a microphone because my voice after the 3 days is not that strong as it was in the beginning. So, dear Deputy Minister, dear ministerial delegates, dear youth delegates, we have come to an end of this EU Youth Conference. Let me express my gratitude to all of you. I think you all have done an outstanding job for the whole process of the EU Youth Dialogue. It was great to see how dedicated and fruitful the conversation was behind every idea and how it slowly made it to the outcome of each working group. Today morning, I saw the presentation of our great researchers with the outcomes of the working groups. And it's extremely important, but also alarming, that we are hearing once again things such as the need to hold policymakers accountable or need for meaningful participation. It just underlines the importance of young people's voices and opinions that must be heard in the decision-making process. After all, the Youth Goal number 9, Space and Participation for All, was a theme of the previous cycle that ended not even a year ago. The EU Youth Dialogue is a unique mechanism, and I'm glad that we, as a Czech Youth Council, had the opportunity to contribute to shape the process. This conference is a place where two realities interconnect. The reality of young people that has outstanding knowledge and the possibility to change the world around them. And then there is the reality of ministerial delegates who are trying to bring in the perspective of real policymaking. Without a doubt, our perspectives are different. Nevertheless, the space here at the conference is made exactly for breaking the barriers, for making compromises and mutual enrichment. It is upon both sides of the representatives, the young delegates and the ministerial delegates, what they will actually bring back home, how they will communicate and work with the outcomes, and finally, how it will reshape not only their reality, but especially the reality of those who they represent. Let me quote here a famous and my favorite Czech writer, Mr. Karel Čapek, since I also have him on my t-shirt. Once he said, mladá generace má pocit, že s ní přichází lepší svět. Stará garda má pocit, že s ní ten lepší svět odchází. The young generation feels that a better world is coming with them, and the old guard feels that a better world is leaving with them. I believe that with this conference we proved that we are striving to create a world where every generation has its place and is able to live the intergenerational dialogue. That is why how we will ensure that the needed solutions for our future problems will be communicated and deliberated upon the whole society. Dear delegates, once again, thank you for your hard work, enthusiasm, and dedication to work on the youth goals of this cycle. Number 3, inclusive societies, and number 10, sustainable and green Europe. I believe that together we can engage for sustainable and inclusive Europe. Thank you. Now, let me just introduce the video speech of the State Secretary for Youth of France, please.
Monsieur le ministre, Madame la commissaire, cher président du Conseil national tchèque de la jeunesse, chers participants, chères participantes. Je souhaite tout d'abord remercier Monsieur le ministre Gazdík pour cette invitation à la Conférence européenne de la jeunesse. Je regrette de ne pouvoir être présent à vos côtés dans la magnifique ville de Prague. Toutefois, je tenais à m'adresser à vous toutes et tous, car je sais combien cet événement est important, tout particulièrement en cette année européenne de la jeunesse. J'adresse tout d'abord à Monsieur le ministre tous mes vœux de réussite pour la présidence tchèque du Conseil de l'Union européenne. Le sujet sur le dialogue intergénérationnel que vous avez retenu pour le volet jeunesse de votre présidence est un enjeu important pour parvenir à un développement durable. Vous pouvez compter sur le soutien de la France pour faire avancer vos travaux. Je souhaite également féliciter le ministère tchèque et le Conseil national tchèque de la jeunesse pour l'organisation de cette belle conférence européenne de la jeunesse. C'est un grand honneur pour moi de passer le relais du 9e cycle du dialogue Union européenne jeunesse. Ce cycle qui a débuté sous notre présidence et se clôturera par la présidence suédoise au 30 juin 2023. Avec nos homologues du trio et les conseils nationaux de jeunesse des 3 pays, nous avons travaillé étroitement depuis janvier 2022 pour s'engager ensemble pour une Europe durable et inclusive. Dans le cadre de cette priorité commune, la France a, durant sa présidence, mis en avant le rôle positif et moteur des jeunes dans la protection de l'environnement. La première conférence sous présidence française a permis de définir les priorités et les enjeux du 9e cycle du dialogue Union européenne jeunesse et de nourrir la consultation qui a été adressée à tous les jeunes européens. Pour rendre concrète la participation des jeunes au processus de décision européen, les jeunes délégués de tous les États membres ont pu présenter eux-mêmes les résultats de la conférence lors de la réunion informelle réunissant les ministres européens de l'éducation et de la jeunesse. Les paroles des jeunes délégués ont été également intégrées dans les conclusions relatives à l'engagement des jeunes pour la protection de l'environnement adoptées par les ministres réunis au Conseil de l'Union européenne le 5 avril dernier. Nous en sommes convaincus. Les jeunes générations sont force de proposition pour faire avancer ces sujets de développement durable qui leur tiennent à cœur. Il est indispensable d'aller au-delà de la seule écoute de leurs propositions et de travailler conjointement avec eux pour trouver des solutions concrètes et ambitieuses. Je sais que nous pouvons compter sur la présidence tchèque pour donner toute sa place à la jeunesse européenne dans le cadre du dialogue Union européenne jeunesse, mais aussi plus largement de l'année européenne de la jeunesse. Pour conclure, je tiens à renouveler tout mon soutien à la République tchèque pour sa présidence de l'Union européenne et je vous souhaite à toutes et tous d'excellents travaux dont je prendrai connaissance avec le plus grand intérêt.
Thanks to Mr. Papendey, and now I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Desiree Ristoto.
Dear young delegates, dear representatives of institution and organization, good morning. I'm very delighted to be here. I think after 2 years of COVID crisis, we're eventually managed to have a face-to-face conference and among the trio of presidencies. So I would like to congratulate my Czech colleagues because I think it's gonna that was a lot of work and a big bravo to them. The 2 days of conference allow fruitful exchanges. We can say that there is a particular interest in the themes of this cycle, which have long deserved to be dealt with. The youth goal number 3 and the youth goal number 10 are, it's about time that the youth goal number 3 and the new youth goal number 10 are among the priorities of the EU Youth Dialogue. Indeed, inclusion and environmental issues are considered as two absolute urgencies by young people. For young people, they are the keys for an optimistic, sustainable, and safe society. Nowadays, young people are already engaged on the issues of inclusion and climate emergency because they want to build a society where they feel safe together. They already have a lot of things to say on that matter, and the European Union is the perfect place to work and move forward together on these issues. It is important to point out that the context felt as alarming and anxiety-provoking by young people is mainly a consequence of political inaction. Young people will feel better if they can see that they are properly listened to and taken into account by politics, especially as they already have a lot of things to say. The environment needs to be considered in all strategic politics. It can no longer be disregarded. Properly done, and Christina said that already, but the EU Youth Dialogue is a great tool because it allows a real involvement and consideration of young people. This year, young people have identified that there is an interest in youth. As it was mentioned during the French European Youth Conference, 2022 is the European Year of Youth. There are 11 youth goals. Young people need to see concrete responses to all of them. The questions now are, how do we properly respond to this youth goal? What can we do for all young people in Europe? It was said during the conference that here there is a small representation of young people. So what can we do to ensure that all young people are taken into consideration? How can we reach more young people? How can we ensure an inclusive, sustainable, and safe European society? How can we ensure that there is a proper intergenerational dialogue on this subject? On that opening question, I leave the floor and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Let's just now welcome by video speech again the Mrs. Janet Gustafsdotter as the Ministry of Culture of Sweden, please.
Youth delegates, commissioner, fellow ministers, EU Youth Conference participants. I hope that you have had many interesting and inspiring discussions over the past days. In these troubling times, it is perhaps more important than ever to unite and talk about how we can ensure a peaceful and sustainable future. I could unfortunately not participate in person with you in Prague, but I really look forward to reading the conference conclusions. The EU Youth Dialogue is a unique process that we can all be proud of. I would like to congratulate the Czech presidency on its work in successfully arranging the first in-person youth conference since the start of the pandemic in 2020. Sustainable development and social inclusion go hand in hand. We have to ensure the inclusion of all young people in society, especially those with fewer opportunities. Thanks to your commitment and efforts, we in the national governments gain deeper knowledge and broader perspectives about the needs and ideas of the young people of Europe. This leads to better policies and decisions for all. The upcoming Swedish presidency will conclude the results from the cycle and together with you reflect on how to develop the youth dialogue further. Together we can deliver results that make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks to Mrs. Gustafsdotter. We will continue with another video speech, but that will be a greeting from the Swedish youth delegates. Please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all who I've met thus far for the amazing privilege to getting to know all of you. For those of you who don't know, my name is Elias Fjelander, and I'm Vice President of the National Council of Swedish Youth Organizations, LSU. A big thank you to the Czech and French presidencies of the Council of the European Union and for their amazing hostship of these past 2 EU Youth Dialogue conferences. We are so much looking forward to hosting you in Sweden in the beginning of 2023. I think that I'm not only talking for myself or for LSU, but for entire Sweden when I'm saying that. You do an amazing work, all of you, EU youth representatives and other people involved in the EU Youth Dialogue. And I am so much looking forward to, presenting the finalized products of these 18 months of work when the Youth Dialogue does end. So the 9th cycle has been really amazing thus far, and I am so much looking forward to hosting you for the last conference in Sweden. So again, a warm thank you, a warm welcome in advance, and we will see each other in Sweden in the beginning of 2023. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I believe now it's time to hand over our presidency to our excellent colleagues from Sweden, even though it is just the beginning of the Czech presidency. The end of this conference is meant to pass the baton on. We have worked on this cycle within a trio. You have heard all the great speeches today by Czech, French, and Swedish representatives. And now we would like to involve you all to the process of the handover. It'll be a handover from young people to young people. But I will really need your help. We have a ball here, and it can be considered as a youth goal. I will now pass the ball through you, through the youth delegates, to my colleague Emma Wedner, the Swedish youth representatives. And I wish her all the best, and I hope she will manage to put this ball to the goal, actually. So let's just kick the youth goal in. And please pass it on, guys and girls.
You can maybe stand up, to get a little bit more energized. Please. Stand up, everybody. Get ready to, get the ball. And think about including. Don't just look at the goal, but include, the youth.
I believe, okay, it's getting there, it's getting there. Let's make it tricky a bit.
Oh.
Thank you, Leo. Guys, catch.
Ooh.
Okay, the goal is not getting there still. Cool. Whoop. Okay. Right now, it's in the hands of the Ukrainian delegation. Hopefully, definitely, yeah. So.
I see. Hoping for invitation.
Catch the ball and pass it on. It will have to eventually get there. We all want the youth goals to be completed, guys. Okay, the Swedes. It's a bit of an activity, but I think we can definitely make it to the end somehow to our dear youth delegates from Sweden. Very well. Emma? Great. Woo! Thank you for help and cooperation, and please take this ball with you to Sweden, and I hope we will play some football maybe in Sweden at the youth conference. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for this handover. And I think there is nothing much left to add and to say besides, the women's EM is taking place right now, and I appreciate, that you are contributing to Europe in a different way, not by playing soccer, but actually, helping us to focus on the youth goal instead of the soccer goals and let the strong women playing football take care of that instead. We really want to now conclude the conference and again wish you good luck and great discussions throughout the next month coming ahead, and especially in the Swedish conference where hopefully we will meet again.
Thank you so much for staying with us for the time of the conference, for your active participation again, and for all the great outputs we created together.
We close as we open. We have a few announcements to make. So you've seen the cute cubes we have, and they are quite versatile. You can make a goal, you can also sit on them, and if you like, you can take them with you. They're foldable, and they're a small present, and in terms of sustainability, we don't just want to throw them away, but maybe somebody came by train, wants to take the opportunity and take it, or give it to somebody as a present. Also, if you're staying longer because you want to enjoy, Prague a little bit more, or you actually couldn't take a flight today because you have a longer, or a train today because you have a longer journey to take, then please go to the transportation desk and make sure that your hotel reservation is in place and still valid, so just to be sure. Also, we are going to leave the venue now. You can, of course, grab some coffee, maybe say some last goodbyes, but just make sure you take everything with you. And again, I want to invite everybody that is interested to look at the feedback one more time, take a picture of it. Yes. And anything else you will hear by us via email, so please go check your mails within the next few days to stay updated. Once again, have a few successful and productive months ahead. Have a safe journey home. It was a pleasure to have you here. See you in Sweden. Okay. You can leave. Thank you again.